Hello there, welcome to the class. In the previous class, we studied about the Sun. We looked at some of the properties of the innermost planets of the solar system, the Mercury, Venus, Earth and the Mars. In this class, we will study about the rest of the planets and other objects that are present in the solar system. We will begin by studying about Jupiter. Jupiter is the largest planet in the solar system. It is also the second largest object in the solar system. Can you tell me which is the largest object? Yes, it is the Sun. Jupiter is the fifth planet from the Sun. In fact, Jupiter is so large that you can fit nearly 1300 Earth-sized objects into the Jupiter. But Jupiter is only 300 times as heavy as Earth. How is this possible? This is possible because Jupiter is mostly made up of gases like hydrogen and helium. Does this sound familiar? Yes, the Sun is also made up of hydrogen and helium. In fact, some scientists believe that Jupiter is a failed star. It has the same composition as the Sun, but it is not massive enough to become a star on its own. This is also the reason why Jupiter is called a gas giant. Jupiter has a large number of moons orbiting around it. The largest of them are named Io, Europa, Ganymede and Callisto. These satellites were first observed by Galileo Galilei using the telescope. The most distinguishing feature of Jupiter is the Great Red Spot. This is a huge storm present in the southern hemisphere of the Jupiter. In fact, it is so huge that one can comfortably fit an Earth-sized object inside the Great Red Spot. Jupiter is on an average 778 million kilometers away from the Sun. That is nearly 5 times farther than the Earth itself. Jupiter takes a little less than 12 years to go once around the Sun. However, Jupiter rotates about its axis much faster than the Earth. One day on Jupiter lasts slightly less than 10 hours on Earth. Here is an assignment for you. Jupiter's axis of rotation is tilted by only approximately 3 degrees. Does this mean Jupiter does not experience seasonal variations? Find out. We will now look at the second largest planet in the solar system, the Saturn. Just like Jupiter, Saturn is also a gas giant. Saturn is nearly 10 times as large as Earth, but 95 times heavier than Earth. On an average, Saturn is more than 1.4 billion kilometers away from the Sun. That is approximately 9 times as far as the Earth itself. Saturn takes nearly 29.5 Earth years to go once around the Sun. One day on Saturn is nearly 10.5 hours long. So, Saturn also rotates very fast about its axis. Interestingly, the axis of rotation of Saturn is tilted by nearly 27 degrees with respect to its orbit. Saturn is a planet known for its rings, extending all the way from nearly 6,500 kilometers all the way up to 1,20,000 kilometers outside its equator. These rings have been of immense interest to the scientists. Though these rings are so wide, these are only a maximum of 20 meters thick, and these rings are made up of objects which can be as tiny as a dust all the way up to as huge as a rock, and these are made up of ice and some amount of carbon. Did you know the rings of the Saturn were discovered in the year 1655? Find out who discovered these rings. We will now move on to the next 2 planets, the last 2 planets in the solar system, namely the Uranus and the Neptune. These are the outermost planets in the solar system. The Uranus is the 7th planet and the Neptune is the 8th and the last planet in the solar system. Just like Jupiter and Saturn, these are also huge gaseous planets. Uranus is nearly 4 times as large as the Earth, whereas Neptune is only slightly smaller than Uranus. These planets are, however, very far away from the Sun. Uranus is nearly 19 times farther than the Earth, and Neptune is still far away at nearly 30 times as far as Earth. Interestingly, these planets are heavier than Saturn. Uranus is nearly 1.5 times heavier than Saturn, while Neptune is nearly 1.7 times heavier than Saturn. Here is an assignment for you. Find out how heavy Uranus and Neptune are compared to Earth. Because of their large distances, these planets take a lot of time to go around the Sun. In fact, 1 year on Uranus is approximately 84 years on Earth, and 1 year on Neptune is nearly 165 years on Earth. But these planets spin very fast. In fact, 1 day on Uranus is only 17 hours long, and that on Neptune is only 16 hours long. One interesting fact about Uranus is that its axis of rotation is tilted by nearly 98 degrees with respect to the orbit. Here is an assignment. Find out if Uranus has equinoxes and solstices. With this, we have now come to the last part of this chapter. We will now study about asteroids, comets and meteors. We studied earlier that the Moon's surface has a lot of craters. Mars also has a lot of craters on its surface. Do you think Earth has craters? Here is an assignment. Find out if there are any craters in India. Collect their pictures. What caused these craters? In fact, objects moving through the space hit the surface of various rocky planets and the Moon and form craters there. Where do these objects come from? They come from the region between Mars and Jupiter. In fact, this region contains a lot of rocky objects that keep moving around the Sun, and these objects are called asteroids. Some of these asteroids go off the orbit once in a while and start moving towards the Sun. These objects collide with the planets to create craters. When they are moving towards the Sun, these objects are called meteoroids. The meteoroids, when they reach the Earth's atmosphere, heat up and glow brightly. At this point, they are called meteors. Most of these meteors get burnt in the atmosphere, but large meteors can survive the journey through the atmosphere and reach the landmass or oceans. These are then called meteorites. You might have seen meteor showers in the night sky. These are nothing but rocky objects that are burning up in the Earth's atmosphere. Here is an assignment. Find out why the meteors heat up and burn when they pass through the atmosphere. Now, here is an activity that will help you understand how craters are formed.
Now, let us understand what a crater is through a demonstration. For this, you require some marbles and some sand. Let us assume this sand to be the surface of the Moon and these marbles to be meteorite. Since the Moon does not have any atmosphere, these meteorite will directly hit the surface of the Moon. Now I will throw these marbles on the sand one by one. As I said, it is same as hitting the surface of the Moon. Now let me remove these marbles once again. Can you see these pits here? These pits form due to the impact of meteorite on the surface of the Moon is called craters. In reality, when a meteorite hit the surface of the Moon, it may remain the same or break into pieces or turn into dust. Now the question arises, what if Moon has an atmosphere? What would happen if it reaches the surface of Earth? Well, when a meteor enters any planet that has atmosphere, it will start burning up due to friction. A small meteor will burn up completely, and that is what we call a shooting star. On the other hand, when a meteor of sufficiently large size enters the atmosphere, it will crash into the land. This again will lead to the formation of craters. This is what happened in 2013 in Russia. A meteor of size about 20 meter wide has crashed into the earth. It exploded in the lower atmosphere. However, the largest fragment of the meteor fell into the frozen lake. Hence, we cannot see the craters. Now, here is a question for you. Can you find any craters found in India?
There is one more type of objects that appear in the sky. They usually appear in regular intervals. They have bright heads and long tails, and their tails keep growing longer and longer as they approach the sun. Have you seen this? Do you know what these are called? These are the comets. Comets originate far beyond the Neptune. Some of them go around the sun in regular intervals. One such comet is the Halley's comet. This has a period of 76 years, and it was last observed in the year 1986. Can you calculate when it will be visible next? So, there it is. We have come to the end of this chapter. In this particular class, we studied about the gaseous planets in the solar system, the Jupiter, the Saturn, Uranus and the Neptune. We also looked at asteroids, meteors and the comets. So, let us now recollect everything that we have studied in this particular chapter. We started with the definition of celestial objects. We saw how our ancestors observed the sky and created a calendar system. We also looked at the various objects in the night sky. We studied about the moon, the various phases of the moon. We also studied about the eclipse. We studied about the stars, their constellations. We studied about the sun, the planets, the rocky planets, Mercury, Venus, Earth and Mars. We also studied about the gas giants. We also in the process looked at two different units of measurement of distance, the light year and the astronomical units. We also studied about asteroids, comets and meteors. I hope this was an interesting journey for you. In fact, in my school days, it was this chapter that motivated me to learn physics. I hope at least some of you are motivated and some of you will become physicists in the future. Thank you.